Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are here in the Cherokee Batting Range podcast studio getting ready to record episode number 160, where we're going to talk about, for all of us as coaches, that we sometimes emphasize the negative a little bit too much, and we want to talk about ways to make sure that we're helping our players learn the lessons that we want them to learn in a more positive way. But before we do that, let's get into our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company. Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount. It's a great way for you to save a little bit of money on a great bat and also help support everything fast pitch at the same time. Also want to talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Folks, we still need more of you. We still need more people to come on board as patrons. We're still running in the red. We're closer to breaking even than we were. You know, the fact that we've added 10 or so patrons in the last month or 6 weeks has really been helpful. The fact that we've added an additional sponsor has been helpful. But the reality is we're still coming up in the red. And if we keep doing that, you know, the number that's in the red is a lot smaller than it was 6 months ago. So I'm optimistic, but I'm still not going to keep doing this forever if I keep losing money. So if you see value in what we're doing, please, please, please become a patron if you can. You go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. It's $5, $10, or $20 a month. And if 25 or 30 of you would come on board at somewhere in that range, we'd be back in the black. I know I told this story a couple weeks ago. We had a 4-month period where we actually broke even. And that was the 4-month period that we had a welding company come on board as a sponsor and sponsor us for way more than the usual amount because the owner of the welding company is a softball guy.
Right.
Well, you know, eventually his other shareholders and people like that looked at it like, why am I, spending all this money for a podcast? They ended up having to stop doing it. So that's been the only time in the history of Everything Fast Pitch, almost 5 years now, that we've had in the black situation. So please, if you can,
pitch in, help
us out. Again, $5, $10, or $20 a month. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. Coach Don and I desperately need your help, and we would love to have the support. We really do appreciate the patrons that have been supporting us. You all are rock stars. Without you, we would have gone out of business a year ago. So we do appreciate it. But again, we need more people who are taking advantage of what we're doing, more people of the thousands of you that listen to come on board and help support us if you can. So Don, one of the things that I deal with all the time with players is this idea that this game is designed to show us all the things that we're not good at. It's designed to challenge us. It's designed to make success really difficult to attain.
Sure.
And so the general feeling that most kids have is, and the general way that most kids are coached is a never-ending list of all the things they're doing wrong instead of the list of things that they're doing right. And that's the thing I want us to change. And I think it starts with us as coaches. And don't get me wrong, if we watch our players closely enough, we can always find something that they need to do better. If you watch Jocelyn Alo slow enough times on the high-speed film and all that stuff that we've talked about in the past, you're going to find something about her swing that's not quite right. You find something that you would change, that you would want to improve. Now, part of the reason a player like that becomes so great is that they're always aware of the things that they need to do to improve. But another reason why a player like that becomes so great is when she does something well, she enjoys doing it and she has fun doing it and she reinforces the positive when it happens. She's the greatest hitter, one of the greatest hitters this game's ever seen. But for all of us, we need to have more emphasis on reinforcing the stuff that we're doing right, because without that, I don't know why anybody wants to play this game.
No, I think that's an exciting topic for us here today, Tori, because we've seen it many times when we've got athletes. There's two sides of that. They'll hit 5 great line drives, and then they'll pop a ball up, and their head goes down, their shoulders go down, they look like they're miserable. And I'm like, you just hit 5 amazing line drives in a very competitive setting, and you missed one. Yeah, but I'm not perfect, right? And it's not designed, just like you said, it's one of the toughest things that we can do in sports is to try and hit a ball. And being successful at that is failing 6 out of 10 times. And that's really tough. But we've also got times when we have a tough training session and, we do pop a lot of balls up, or we're not having as good a round or a workout as we typically would, but we're still putting forth the effort. We're still taking the cuts. We're still applying all the, mental focus to try and do better or to perform better that day. But we still have a tough day. But we've done our part that day, and we need to feel accomplished. We need to feel like, that the hard work we did is moving me towards my goals, even though today wasn't a perfect day. And if we don't, at least inside, feel some type of excitement or gratification in the fact that I put forth my best effort today, and it just wasn't my day. And that's part of the deal. And if I beat myself up too much, I'm not going to want to continue doing that or to get to that big goal that we might have.
Well, and you touch on a couple of things that I think are really important, Don. And the first one to me is helping players understand that every time they hit the ball well, every time they take a good swing, every time they make a good pitch, every time they field a ground ball, every time they do something correctly, well, positively, in their mind, it should feel like they jackpot on the slot machine in Vegas.
I got a prize.
Yeah.
I did something.
And I started doing something a couple of years ago with players, but of course I have to explain to all of the kids I work with what the slot machine sound is. But we'll have periods during a lesson where if they hit something well, if they do something really well, if they're accomplishing what we're working on, I'll just go ding, 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 ding. And that's just code for you should be really proud of what you just did. You should be excited. You should be happy. You should have that, like, I just won the jackpot feeling because you just did something really, really positive. And the reason I think that's so important is if we spend all our time picking at it, we can find
something wrong with
every single
little
swing.
bit. Yeah.
You have a player who hits a screaming line drive, and we slow down the video and we watch it on super, super slow motion, and we see that the bat angle was off by 2 degrees, or that they're 1/10 of a second late, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so we break it down and we spend all our time, well, you needed to be 1/10 of a second faster, or you needed to, change the bat angle by 3 degrees, or whatever it is. And all that kind of stuff becomes so overwhelming that for some of the players that I've worked with, I don't know how they could possibly ever have any fun playing the game because they get that stuff all the time.
Even you saying that, Tori, when you were talking about a great hit, I'm like, yeah. And then when you said, but you're off by a little bit, I felt deflated.
Right.
I felt like my shoulders wanted to go down. I'm like, oh, okay, it wasn't that good then.
And so us as coaches, we have to make sure, and again, it's a balancing act. We need to always be making corrections. But if we're making corrections in an environment where all we're doing is correcting without any reinforcement, we're going to be in a big, big, hard place trying to help kids get any better. And, one of the things that, unfortunately, most of the kids we work with are too young to have ever had like a psychology course. But all of us that have had, Psychology 101 in college, remember that the most positive way to learn something, the most impactful way to learn something is positive reinforcement. And so if somebody does something right and you give them an attababy, a pat on the back, that's a good thing. But the most important positive reinforcement that a player can ever have is from themselves. That in the heart of hearts, when they know that was dead on, that was really good, man, that felt great. Oh, I want to do that again. And that's the reason why that positive reinforcement is so important, because it makes them want to do it again. And unfortunately, we have a lot of kids playing this game that they take a beautiful swing, they hit a screaming line drive, and they'll automatically, instantly go to what could have been better, what they should have done, why that wasn't quite perfect. And again, the chase for perfection is one thing, but the chase for perfection without any fun along the way means I'm probably not getting very far down the road.
Or expecting that that's going to actually happen.
Right. Second part that I wanted to talk about that you mentioned was, when kids go through training sessions, when they go through a lesson or they go through a practice, one of the things that I've thought for a really long time is I think we do softball and baseball backwards. What happens is kids go to practice, and let's say they take 100 swings. If they didn't hit 100 balls hard, they think they had a bad practice.
was a fail.
Yeah, if they come to one of my lessons or one of your lessons and they take 100 swings, if they didn't hit every ball hard, they think it was a failure. And the reason that's so damaging is because what I think most of them do then is they set themselves up to believe they had a good practice or a good lesson by working on the stuff they're already good at. So we see this all the time. And we talk about human nature as the enemy for most of us in this game. If I say, Don, I want you to hit 100 off the tee. Human nature is pretty simple. You're going to put the tee dead down the middle because you already know you're really good at hitting that. You're going to hit 100 screaming line drives right back up the middle, and you're going to walk out that day with a little bit of exercise, a little bit of muscle memory, and absolutely no improvement because you just spent your time doing only the stuff that you're already good at.
Well, I've had that conversation with many, many, many players about feeling like we're, as coaches, that we're not able to challenge them because they get so deflated or they get so worked up. I mean, they get pretty emotional even sometimes when they're not able to hit an outside pitch to right field as a right-handed batter,
right,
comfortably and to do it consistently. When they're not able to do that, they're not going to get better at it by hitting that pitch down the middle perfect. Right. And if we can't challenge them and we can't create an environment where they do struggle a little bit, then they're not going to grow as a player as quickly.
Right.
And just like you're saying, if we throw them 50 outside pitches and they hit 3 of them well one week, they still have to feel okay and be excited to try and get 6 the next week and then 9 the next week. And now all of a sudden, half of them we're striking them pretty well to right field. But if we as coaches are afraid to challenge them that way because it's going to be so deflating or so emotionally traumatizing that we just lay it down the middle, we're not going to grow as quickly as an athlete as we might like to.
Right.
So,
and that's where I think this whole discussion about emphasizing the positive reinforcement and positive, helping them understand why this is something that they should be celebrating. So if we start off, okay, we're going to spend, this next 10 minutes working on just the outside pitch. And, they struggle and they start to get frustrated. So, we're going to keep working at it. You're doing some things. If they, let's say they start off and the first, couple that you toss to them outside, they're cheating like crazy and, almost stepping over home plate to hit the outside pitch. Well, when we fix that, we're going to celebrate that. So, all right, hey, you've already fixed your footwork. That part's great. You've already done this. You should really be proud of that. That's a really important first step. And then the next 5 or 8 or 10, they're reaching way out in front and trying to hit the ball 15, 20, 30 inches in front of home plate. So they're trying to hook everything to left field. Then, okay, here's what we need to do. Here's where you need to make contact with it. Then the first time that they actually let the ball get deep, even if they foul it off.
Sure.
Oh, man, that's awesome. That's great. Wait, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And the more we can sell them on those little victories, eventually the little victories, as you said, 3 become 6, 6 become 12, 12 becomes 24, and all of a sudden they love the outside pitch or they love the inside pitch, to go with our discussion about getting jammed up on the Everything Fast Pitch podcast this week. Yeah. The whole idea is it's up to us to set the tone. And if we're frustrated because I threw you 50 pitches outside and you didn't get it today, well, you're never going to work on it again.
We just leave it at that.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm excited because out of the 50 that I threw to you outside today, you hit 5 really good and you were close to hitting 5 more really good, and that's 10 more than ever before in your life, we should be jumping up and down and ready to pop the champagne because we should be so excited about the fact that we're making that kind of progress.
And I was going to say, and just like you said, but that's when that inside, pat on the back has to happen too. We got to have that part for the emotional piece to be comfortable.
And that's something, that us reinforcing it is great. But I have that flat discussion with kids all the time. I said, if you're not going to enjoy it for you when you do something well, you need to stop playing this game. And they kind of look at me like I'm crazy at first. I said, you've signed up to do one of the hardest things in the history of history. You're trying to hit a round ball with a round bat that somebody's throwing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. And
no two of them are the same.
And you think you should be able to perfectly hit every single one of them 100% of the time. How crazy is that? And we just kind of keep breaking it down. So when you do really well on a test, before you even get home to tell your parents, you're kind of like basking in the glory of that all day long, right? You're like you can't wait to get to your phone to text mom and dad, say, hey, I aced the biology test. Well, that feeling that you have before you can get to the phone to tell anybody else that you did great, that's the feeling you need to have as a softball player. But you need to have it every time something really good happens. And for some of us, something really good could be for a young player the first time they actually hit the ball to right field when they should hit it to right field. If it's the first time they've ever done it and they don't enjoy the heck out of it, they're not going to care enough to try to do it again. And so we just got to keep building on that. And again, because a lot of these kids are such perfectionists, there's only so much of that you can solve as their coach, because a lot of that's, being fed into them at home, right? Maybe you have a parent meeting with your team at some point in time and say, hey, I know you want your kids to be great, but you expecting them to be perfect isn't going to help them be great.
Well,
so
I was going to say too, Tori, when you mentioned the grades, that's part of our thing, because many of these athletes are fabulous students in school. The good or bad is not, anything less than 100 on some of your quizzes is almost unacceptable, but you're not going to get 100 out of 100 in
Right.
softball.
The moral to the story is really pretty simple. We have to understand human nature. We want to be able to challenge kids. And if we don't challenge them, if we don't give them the motivation to challenge themselves, they never will. So it's up to us as coaches to teach them how to enjoy it. Whether it's something as simple as ding, 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 ding. And none of them are going to understand it when you tell them at first, but you explain to them, hey, I won the big pile of money when I pulled the lever on a slot machine once. Every time something good happens in my life now, I kind of go back to that ding, 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 ding feeling. And guess what it makes me want to do? Do it again. And do it again. And do it again. Eventually, there's going to be a payoff. So that's going to wrap up episode number 160. Make sure you support Anderson Bat and go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. You can go to our fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs there. You can also have access to the YouTube channel and the blogs. There's a ton of information available to you. We would love for you to take advantage of that. As always, please reach out to us at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. Nominations for Player of the Week for Everything Fast Pitch, or any questions, ideas, suggestions, things you want us to talk about. Coach Don and I are always looking for ideas. So for Coach Don McKinley, our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Tori saying thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.